So, hey, everybody, Michael Harris here, and I am thrilled to introduce a friend of mine, a former instructor, Dr. Bruce. How you doing?
Fantastic.
Yeah, we have, he and I were talking before we started this video. We probably haven't talked to each other in probably 16, 18 years, whatever. I had hair back then. It was awesome. Uh, but I wanted to bring you on today because I do a completely different type of hypnosis than you do, and you do something that's really interesting. But before we get into this, I want to tell everybody, please go to Amazon, please check out his books. Your Journey Was Never Meant to End, The Case for Reincarnation. You have been doing hypnotherapy for umpteen gajillion years. You were a co-founder and past president of the American Board of Hypnotherapy, which, oh, by the way, was my very first hypnosis certification. And I just wanted to kind of jump in and, and ask you a bunch of questions and see, just what your answers are. Like, for example, how did you first become interested in hypnosis?
Oh, that was many, many years ago. There's a backstory on that, which I think your listeners might find interesting. I come from an aviation family, on Long Island, New York. Actually, we had an airport, and we also had at the same time a duck farm. We got Long Island ducks. And anyway, my father was a fighter pilot during the war, stationed in England. He flew the P-51 Mustang, and he went down in the English Channel. His engine quit. He went down in the English Channel. Make a long story short, he ended up in Nazi beach in Nazi-occupied France. Some farmers found him, and they took him for medical attention and whatever. And anyway, after the war, they opened an airport. Him and his brother opened an airport on Long Island. My father since he was the pilot, he was the flight instructor. My uncle ran the business end of it. And my father, I have to call him a Renaissance man. He was interested in a lot of things. And he used to use hypnosis to help his students as a flight instructor pass the FAA written exam and flight exam. I used to watch him doing it when I was a kid. And so he had a whole bunch. I wish I had those books today, these old hypnosis books from like 20s, 30s, 40s. They'd be worth a lot of money today. Unfortunately, I don't. But and that's probably what led me. That's also what led me to past life regression in a way, because I was rummaging through the attic and I came upon a book called The Search for Bridie Murphy. And I asked him about it. Who's Bridie Murphy? Why are people searching for her? What's going on? And he told me, he opened my eyes up to the concept of reincarnation. And he believed, it was his belief that he was a fighter pilot during the First World War also, who went down in flames over France. Now, whether it was the Red Baron who got him, I don't know. But what's interesting, he believed that, and it's interesting that he went down in both wars. The Second War, well, he managed to survive. That's how I became interested.
Excellent. Are there any special qualifications that are necessary for you so if somebody's watching this and they're a hypnotist? Are there any certifications or qualifications that they need to specialize in age regression and past life regression?
Do they need it? No. Should they have it? Yes. Years ago, when I first started doing this, even actually when I first started doing hypnotherapy, there were no schools. You learned at the School of Hard Knocks. You taught yourself. You read books. You sat in on people's sessions. Then gradually schools began to be formed. So I actually I did get formal training when I have a couple of doctorate degrees, but I kind of put the horse before the cart. I was doing it before I got the training to do it. And lo and behold, I found out, hey, I was doing it right. The first past life regression I did, that was back in the 60s. I was a college student at the time. And I was sitting having a cup of coffee with my cousin, and we used to talk about things, crazy things like that. Reincarnation, past lives, mental telepathy, the whole ghost. We used to play with Ouija boards, and if we got to talking about past lives and reincarnation, she says, "You want to give it a try?" And I said, "Sure, I'll do it." What do they say? God protects the foolhardy and the drunks, or whatever it is, and everything worked out. I really didn't know what it was, but I did get education after that. And any hypnotherapist looking to do this, yeah, I would. So there are a lot of schools online that teach them, and I would talk to people, interview people. I personally, I do teach past life regression as a certification through an organization I began back in 1993, the American Board of Clinical and Medical Hypnotherapy. And we're a certifying organization. We're not a membership organization. So I don't have an axe to grind there. We just certify them. And one of the courses I teach and have for years is past life regression. I used to do it at the time you and I knew each other back then. I used to do it in my office or in hotel rooms. Travel around, you do these. People don't want to do that anymore. It's hard to get people to go out after COVID. So now I do it one-on-one, online, one-on-one, either Zoom or whatever other online video service there is. And then I also, what I'm in the process of doing is I am working on it now. Hopefully by the first of the year is my plan. But the old saying, man plans, God laughs. So I'm coming up with a online downloadable video training for past life regression therapy. So I work at that every day, and I'll be ready.
We'll have to have you back so that we can talk about that, and
Yes.
we'll post links to your website where people can find you, if that's okay.
Yes, it would be simple, drkaloski.com. DrKaloski.com.
Excellent. Okay, let's switch gears here for a second. Do you have any favorite stories of clients that have really benefited from going through reincarnation or age regression hypnosis with you?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind is one of the first ones I did, and it was usually those things really stick in your mind. And this had to be in I guess the early '80s, and a fellow came in to my clinic for memory and concentration. He had some exams to take, and as he was sitting there, he kept moving in his chair like he was uncomfortable. And he said, and I says, "Is something the matter?" He says, I got this pain in my back, and the doctors can't figure out what it is. So he says, but I just have to get into a comfortable position. So we worked with him, and then it was successful with the memory concentration. But then he called up and said, I've been doing some reading that sometimes pains like this can have an origin in a past life. And I says, this is true. They can, or may not. It's a psychogenic pain. So he came in, I did a regression on him. He went back to a lifetime he lived in the 1880s in Colorado as a fur trapper. And he was encroaching on Indian land. So he, in the regression, he went to the reservation, or the encampment of the Indian reservation, to have a powwow with them to see if they could reach an agreement. So they sat around on the campfire, smoked the peace pipe, whatever it is they did, and they made an agreement. They reached an agreement and understanding. He would be allowed to hunt on a certain area of the Indian land, and there was one particular Indian who was totally against this. He was a renegade. He did not want to have anything to do with the white man. While he was walking towards his horse, this Indian snuck up behind him, tomahawked him in the back. And he died a lingering, horrible death. And this was in the 1880s. But there was another problem he had. He said to me, besides the pain, he was also mistrustful of other people. As he said it, he was always looking behind him, looking behind his back. Well, when this became known to him, in the past life regression, his pain was gone, and so was his attitude bordering on paranoia. And one more, though. Okay, this is in one of the certification trainings I was doing, I asked for volunteers to demonstrate. So demonstrating past life therapy. And his presenting problem was that he was, he wanted to be a public speaker to the Hispanic, a motivational speaker to the Hispanic market. Only one problem. He was afraid to speak in public. Okay. So we took him back. He went back to a lifetime, lived in ancient Rome, and his job was as an announcer at the Colosseum. So what he used to have to do is he used to have to get out in front of whatever, 50, 100,000 people and the emperor and open a scroll and read the day's events, whatever they would be, lions eating Christians, gladiators dismembering one another, whatever. So anyway, he got out there and opened the scroll, and his friends had played a joke on him. They gave him a blank scroll. So he went out there and he froze. It was like one of those, amina. I didn't know what was going to happen. He looks up, the emperor could have went like this. So that was the reason why he developed a fear of public speaking. Now he went on to become one of the top motivational speakers to the Hispanic market. I'm proud to say.
Outstanding. But have you noticed any cultural or religious belief play in people's experiences when they're doing reincarnation or age regression?
Well, there are Hispanics by and large, and there was a study done, I think it was in 2019 or 2020, by a research organization called PEW. And they looked at attitudes towards reincarnation around the world. And Hispanics were the top believers in it. I think about like 47, at least 47%, or in the 50s believed in reincarnation. In the United States, it's gone up considerably. I think 33% believe in reincarnation. Among religions, too, Catholics are the biggest believers in reincarnation. So they're like 38, 39%. But cool. So, in working with them, no, I have never found a difference in working with different cultures as to what they're able to experience. They may relate different things as they do in near-death experiences. A Christian who has a near-death experience many times will report seeing Jesus. A Muslim will report seeing Muhammad. He may have a meeting with Muhammad on a near-death experience. Or a Buddhist would see Buddha. So apparently, because we're working with the brain, the human brain, along with the soul, we do relate to what our cultural experiences are.
Excellent. In your opinion, what are the most common misconceptions about reincarnation and age regression?
The most common misconception about that is, and this actually goes back to the use of hypnosis in doing that. People will believe that these are somehow implanted memories. What's the result of what's called confabulation or cryptoamnesia, which is where a person remembers something, but they don't remember why or where they remember it from, and so they make up a story. That's one of the impediments to doing this. Also, the fact that under hypnosis, people can make up things, and it is not admissible in a court of law as evidence. However, that being said, it is used by law enforcement and agencies. One of, I don't even know if he's still alive, is a fellow, matter of fact, from Texas. His name is Mark Howell, and he probably doesn't do it anymore, but he was what's called a forensic hypnotist. He worked with law enforcement officers in the state of Texas to help witnesses, to help with them interrogate witnesses. Now, what has to be remembered when you're doing this is that a witness can lie in hypnosis or outside of hypnosis. So it is up to the person doing that to be sufficiently trained as to not leave the witness. Remember the old Perry Mason courtroom dramas? Where they jump, I object, leading the witness. Well, that's if you don't know what you're doing, that's easily done. But the most important thing that argues for the reliability of what can be attained in this and the truth to it is when we get facts that can be researched and verified.
Mhm.
When you can go back and you can, in a session, and you can get names, dates, sometimes addresses of where they lived 200 years ago or 100 years ago, that's pretty convincing.
Absolutely. How do you stay updated with like the latest, greatest, research and findings in your field?
Just like a lot of people these days, Facebook, certain Facebook groups, but I tend more towards the science-based groups that are out there,
Mhm.
rather than the ones, and please don't misunderstand me, not the woo type groups who took it in totally a spiritual context, and it is very much spiritual. But what there may, there has to be, I can't say may, there has to be a scientific basis behind what is happening here. We just
Mhm.
don't know what it is yet. There's some theories out there as to what happens, and it all comes down to consciousness. Is a lot of consciousness local, produced by the brain, and dies when the brain dies, or is it non-local? So that not contingent upon the brain or brain activity, and that when we pass, this consciousness stays intact and just goes somewhere, and then is able to come back into a being, a human.
Mhm.
And
Cool.
there's some very serious research being done around this too.
Outstanding. How do you prepare if you're going to do a session? I know you've been doing this for a gajillion years. I've been doing this for a while, and for me, the prep work is I go turn my Zoom on. But how do you prepare for an age regression or reincarnation session?
Okay. I do things let me say a lot differently than most hypnotherapists or past life practitioners. And I do this even when I do hypnotherapy. And you know about this, Michael, because you were my student. You took this. I never do personally. I never do hypnosis or regression on the first session.
Hmm?
Most people out there do that. Okay. My program is a 2-session program. And the first session is a clinical interview and evaluation, just like I do hypnosis or hypnotherapy, just like I would be working with a person to lose weight or to stop smoking. Because I want to find out a number of different things. What do they know about past life regression and reincarnation and hypnosis? And
Mhm.
what are their goals in being hypnotized and to remember a past life? Because this helps me determine what type of session I'm going to do. Not
Mhm.
one size does not fit all. One size does not fit all. So then I explain it to them, and I also do testing with them. And you probably remember my MMP testing kit that I
Mhm.
used, and I adapted that to past life regression. Well, as a hypnotherapist, the only tool I have at my disposal is my voice and the words I speak. I'm not a plumber, so I don't use a wrench. Okay. I'm not a surgeon. I don't use a scalpel. So my tool is the words that I speak. These particular tests in which we look at things like hemispheric brain dominance, so the left brain or the right brain, how do they process information visually, auditory, kinesthetically, and a number of other things. I look at ways they may have had spontaneous or what's called non-voluntary recall of past life memories. That's
Mhm.
common too, outside of the state of hypnosis. It's not as detailed as it would be if it was in hypnosis. So I look at all of these things and I design the regression part of it specifically for them and for what they would want to accomplish doing that. What's their
Mhm.
reason? What's their motivation? So
So
I do it a bit differently, a lot different. And that's how I train my students, by the way.
excellent. Yeah, I remember I still use your stuff. And when you're in session, how do you differentiate between symbolic or metaphorical memories versus literal past life recollections?
The primary difference is going to be in the detail. Metaphorically, metaphorical memories or assignations to a particular, that might be metaphorical, are not going to be as detailed.
Mm.
They're not going to remember names or relationships between the people at that time. That person who was my father in the past life is my Aunt Gladys in this life. They're not gonna talk about things like that if it's metaphorical. So it's essentially in the detail. The devil is in the details. Okay, dates. Dates is another thing. They're going to come up with dates, but specific dates, specific areas where they live, towns, streets.
So hopefully somebody's going to be watching this later, and let's say that they're considering doing reincarnation or age regression hypnosis. What advice would you give them, before they pick up the phone and call you?
A good idea would be to go to my website, okay, drkaloski.com, navigate to the page that says type. Well, there's two pages on there. One is just the benefits of past life regression. They should look at that. In other words, what are they going to get out of it? Okay, what's in it for them? And the second one is types of past life regression, because I delineate four different types of past life regression. I don't lump everybody into one. So they'd be for specific purposes, specific goals that that person may indeed have. So that would be very important. That would make my life a whole lot easier. And then they can reach out to me from there. They can reach out to me through my website, through my email, which is simple, drkaloski@gmail.com, drkaloski@gmail.com. Then at that point, I always offer a free consultation. I want to make sure that they and I are a fit, that we can work together, and that I can indeed help them with what they're looking for. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. So I do offer a free consultation. If we're in agreement, then we go ahead and go into the program. We book the clinical interview, and then from there, we book the actual regression session itself.
Excellent. You said something really interesting, that you do there are four types of regression. Can you say more about that?
Sure, absolutely. The first one, I call it my Joe Friday session. Now, maybe some of your listeners remember the show Dragnet, right? With Jack Webb, Sergeant Joe Friday. And what was his catchphrase? Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Right? And so actually, this is called an informational session. I kid around when I say Joe Friday. But it's a session that is it's an informational session. We're only looking at the facts. In other words, who was I? Where was I? When was I? What did I do? What did I eat? Where did I live? How did I travel? How did I die? So they're cold, hard facts. You don't get much insight between lives. That's not the purpose of this session. But some people who are the type that they have a need to know and they want to verify, this is great. Because now what they can do is they can go online in about 10 minutes, they can have information after Googling it. You couldn't do that years ago. You had to go to a library and sit down with encyclopedias and books. Much easier now to verify and research. That's for those type of people. Then we have a karmic connection session. The karmic connection session is where we look at the past life that is directly responsible for whatever is for this life, or whatever is going on at the moment in this life. Perhaps whatever issue, whatever challenge they happen to be facing. We go back to that particular lifetime. It's not necessarily chronologically the last lifetime they lived. In other words, if they alive now in the first part of the 21st century, it doesn't mean that they always go back to the 20th century, the early 20th century. No, it may be something that happened 300 or 400 years ago that is linked here. We look at that. We look at relationships, karmic relationships, their parents, their relatives, friends. Did they come over with them? Are they part of their soul group? Did they come over with them? And are they spending their lives this time with them? Why? What's the purpose of it? What are they meant to learn? What are they meant to experience? What are they meant to teach each other? That's just some of the things we do. The next one is the between lives regression. And that is where we go to the time period between the lives, the last life lived and this current life. Well, it's like having two sessions in one. I always take a person back to the lifetime they lived prior to this one. Again, that may not chronologically, they may not be. If you're alive now in the 21st, may not be in the 20th century. If we accept some of the opinions of quantum physicists that, like Einstein, that all time was one, that the past, the present, and the future all exist simultaneously at the same time. The last lifetime they lived might have been 500 years ago, 600 years ago. They'll go where they're meant to go. Okay, we do a brief overview of that life, then we segue into the between lives period. The between lives, this is a good session for people who want to meet their spirit guide, meet their soul group at the time period between the lives. This is for people who have a need to know why they're here, what their purpose in life, what's it all about, Alfie. We also take them through the pre-birth planning phase, where they plan this particular lifetime, the one they're in now. And the details of that, and what they're going to do, who they're going to work with, what members of their soul group are going to come with them and interact, and they're like script writers. It's like a Hollywood script writer. They're writing the script. There can always be changes in the script, but basically they sit down and write the script at that great conference table in the sky, if I could say that. And then the last type is past life therapy. This is past life regression for a specific definable purpose. A target is targeted. Person may this would be for the person who suffers fears and phobias, has maybe a fear of heights. They might want to know why, and what can be done about that. My person, those two that what I mentioned, the examples I gave, the fur trapper and the announcer in the Roman Colosseum, that's an example of past life therapy. They have an issue they want to resolve. We're going to look back into a past life to see where we can find the possible genesis or origin, and depending what it is, take it through certain processes to expiate that. And I also like to do a little hypnotherapy at the end of that session too. I can't help it. I'm a hypnotherapist, so I can't help myself.
I want to thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. Yeah, when you and I were working together, I was a student. So, we didn't have this kind of conversation. So
we did not. This is true.
We did not. And when you are ready to release your course, please let me know. We'll bring you back on. We can, we'll fire all the rockets and toot the horns. And okay, so I hope this
hopefully by the first of the year, but Murphy's Law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jennings corollary. The possibilities of the bread falling with the buttered side down in direct proportion to the cost of the carpet.
I love that one. Yes.
All right. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.